Welcome back, Fresh Progress Beauty fans. It is morning, it is early, I am a little sleepy, but thank you for coming to my channel. And I just want to inform you of some updates. I have a new website, freshprogress.wordpress.com. Awesome website, coaching, self-care, study tips, ideas, and yeah, and book a session with me. It's awesome sauce, and I'm in grad school for what my sessions are for, so it's kind of a win-win. Hey guys, welcome back to Fresh Progress Beauty, and today I will be doing a review of Insecure of Queen Sugar and Insecure Queen Sugar, and also this really good show called Atlanta. I'm definitely gonna start doing this on my channel, and I'm really into those three shows. Like, that's all I absolutely watch. I love it, I support it. It shows that are, you know, of course there are, of course, black written, black directed, which is really awesome for diversity in Hollywood. There was a long time where there wasn't any shows that you saw yourself in as a person of color. So it's really exciting, and I really hope, as well, that trend also continues for gendered and sexual minorities. I hope, to see more shows where they can see themselves in, and they're deep, dense characters besides, certain tropes, as well as, of course, women and South Asian, Latina, subsections in Latina community. So I just really hope this trend continues, and I really like it, and I like the fact that they're taking a chances on some of these young television creators. So I truly recommend it. These shows are well written. Something you kind of should know about me is I'm really into well written shows. It's really important to me. I think watching TV is taking up my time, I do admire people that don't watch TV, but at the same time I love watching TV. I think it's a great conversation filler. And I'm somewhat of a dramatic person, and I think TV just allows us to live out the dramas and be surprised and grow with characters that you wouldn't normally grow with. But anyway, I really recommend it, and like I said, I'm really into well-written shows and well-written movies, and don't get me wrong, I have my moments where I'm into the mediocre. I love Real Housewives of Atlanta. For a long time I loved Basketball Wives, Gossip Girl, The Hills. I have my days just like any other person. But yeah, the ultimate thing just comes down to well-written shows. That's what I'm super into. So quick video about the criminal justice system and mass incarceration, and I kind of want to just make two little recommendations and suggestions for you guys. So I guess the first one I wanted to make is, I think everyone should read this book called The New Jim Crow. It's a really good read. It's by Michelle Alexander. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's really well known, and I think it's a really good primer for the movie The 13th on Netflix that's getting a lot of critical acclaim as of lately. So I'll give you a little background behind mass incarceration. So mass incarceration, basically people in prison, a very high overrepresented population of black and brown bodies in prison, specifically male, but female was also missing in the conversation because there's a huge female population in the prison system, actually, which most people don't know about. I'm so sorry, my camera keeps moving. It's really annoying me. Yeah, so There's a really large actually women population in the prison system right now as we speak, but oftentimes women are kind of left out of the conversation, but that's a whole other issue. So back to mass incarceration and overrepresentation of black and brown bodies in the prison system. And basically in both The 13th, a documentary on Netflix, and The New Jim Crow, a book by Michelle Alexander, both cases kind of argue that mass incarceration is just like kind of a newer form of slavery, and that it's interesting that like the populations in prison are black and brown bodies that have historically been oppressed, and social injustice is not by accident, but rather society designed, and they serve a purpose. And that's a huge misconception, like, oh, poverty just happens to certain people, and you know, crime just happens to certain communities. Like, a lot of it is on purpose. A lot of it has other seeds and other factors, and nothing is ahistoric. Everything is related to history, and nothing is standalone or asymptomatic of policies and presidents and just different initiatives that we've had throughout the years. So that's kind of the case both things argue. The big thing with the 13th that was interesting was this idea that, okay, like, we're banning slavery, but except when the person's a criminal. And the idea of criminal changes from time to time. In the 60s, you were a criminal if you were marching on Washington or marching in Selma with Dr. King. You know, criminal is very subjective. You were a criminal if you're non-violently protesting for women's rights, you know. So it's very interesting what, you know, how criminal is very subjective. And it's very interesting how we have this stereotype of black and brown bodies being naturally, you know, criminal, naturally monstrous. Oh my God, protect our children. Let's walk on the other side of the street. But statistically, blacks and whites perform the same amount of crime, but blacks tend to go to jail more than whites. And don't even get me started about drugs and how even the whole going to jail because of drugs and how that's more of a public health issue. And like the reasons why people are selling drugs in the first place. And if we're going to even criminalize drugs, how come we don't even start with pharmaceutical companies and the fact that we do have legal drugs? And it's like that Chris Rock joke, you know, God forbid you're selling, and you know, do I condone drug use? No. I think, in my opinion, sometimes I do believe drugs are kind of used as a coping mechanism. The world is so chaotic and so stressful that, you know, we need something to numb us. But I do believe we should develop better coping mechanisms, and that speaks more to our society than anything else. But I do believe that, you know, at the end of the day, we do have pharmaceutical drugs, and we do have, you know, over-the-counter things people are addicted to. You know, it's not by accident. But when certain communities, you know, create a black market, and even when the government creates a black market, when certain things are deemed illegal, you know, even though they're quite present in different arenas in society, there's going to be a black market. And then also classism. So, you know, cocaine, the powder, is like a classy drug. You see Wolf of Wall Street, they're like doing lines down girls' bodies, whole other conversation. And then crack cocaine, we're thinking of like Whitney Houston, we're thinking of like, you know, impoverished communities, urban, rural communities, and we just think of poverty. But they're the same thing, you know. So it's very interesting too how classism plays into it. How, you know, I'm from New York. It's very easy to find cocaine on Wall Street. It's very easy to find cocaine in very affluent communities in NYC. And then when we get talking about other drugs that are considered not as luxury branded as, you know, cocaine, it's deemed as this like, oh my God, huge problem, you know. And even the funny thing is, like, now the issue isn't even necessarily cocaine, it's heroin, especially among rural whites in America as of like 2015. But nobody cares because the population that's using it, you know. So that's a whole other issue too. Like, we need to expand the conversation besides an urban, you know, versus rural conversation, and we need to actually expand it to be more inclusive, because at the end of the day, like, rural populations, black or white, go through similar things as well, you know. And we kind of just have to do a better job of, I'm so sorry, I'm backing up right now. I'm trying to get my life together. I'm not a good parker. Yeah, we just kind of have to do like a better job of oops, sorry. Yeah, we just have to do a better job of, in terms of putting people in jails, surveillance techniques, and also having honest conversation about race, about prejudice in this country. And we also need to do, I think, the documentary was great, you know. Basically, the documentary said, the new Jim Crow, the new slavery is the prison systems. Underneath the prison systems, we can basically impart slavery. There's a reason why prisoners make zero money. A lot of the desks you see in schools, they make Victoria's Secret underwear. They work for all these companies basically for free. Basically like labor, free labor almost, which is like crazy. We're living in America, a capitalist economy where we need to be charged by our work. You know, we're entrepreneurship. Nothing is free. We don't do free work. What? Crazy? And prisoners can do free work because they're criminals and they need to serve their time. So it's really interesting, like, how our perception changes when who is doing the work, you know, whose hands are doing the work, which is really interesting. I think the only thing the documentary the only couple things the documentary messed up on to me was they forgot to link education to the prison industrial complex. Oftentimes, people that get into prison, it starts very early. We can talk about detentions. We can talk about being sent home. We can talk about constant absenteeism and being a person that was a teacher for a year. Those things are all little seeds that lead to incarceration later on in life. I also think, I wouldn't even say hip-hop culture, but I also say just like gang culture. You can talk about mafia culture, violence in video games, violence in movies, toxic masculinity, all those things relating to men just being in prison more often, especially black and brown men being in prison more often. And then I think the last thing is just them not having, you know, solace in their communities. You know, recreation centers, boys and girls clubs are constantly being torn down. There's a lot of blight in communities. Lack of public funding. You know, the first places to get cut are the recreation centers and these communities, and I think that should have been addressed in the film. And lastly, women. You know, oftentimes we forget to talk about women. We forget to talk about LBGT populations in the prison. You know, they're one of the highest populations as well, and they're also marginalized, and that's also something that, like, I don't want to say surpasses race, but you can be black, white, any color and be, you know, identify as a sexual minority. So that could have also been an interesting conversation. But yeah, that's just my little tidbit on the 13th. I think everyone should watch the 13th. It's on Netflix. Really great documentary. Watched it with my best friend Bailey. Hey Bailey, if you're watching, woo! And yeah, and also read The New Jim Crow. Write in the comments below, what are your thoughts on mass incarceration? Are you into it? And not into it. Do you want to reform it? Do you think it should get bigger? Should we scale it down? What are your thoughts on it? And I'll also make another video about restorative justice, which is something I'm also into. But yeah, bye, have a great day, and mommy is late to work. Love you guys, and thanks for watching Fresh Progress Beauty. Black solidarity, black pride does not mean, you know, anti-white, you know. Look at history and ask if it means that, okay? And come back.